A lot of 20, 30-year-olds are upset, and I get it. I mean, I'm in your age bracket, and I see a lot of my clients and people younger than me or a little bit older than me upset. Makes total sense. And that's why today we're talking about our Congress people, because I think a lot of this it goes back to government. It always kind of goes back to government and what they vote on. 3 balls, 2 strikes, pressure is on. This is where we discuss real estate, property improvement, and business. Together, we'll strategize on how to win. Welcome to the Full Count. Good evening. This is Andrew Vargas, host of Full Count Podcast. Here we talk about real estate, business, and on occasion, a little bit of baseball. Today, it's a little bit about politics. And yes, I don't like talking about it so much on camera, but the reality is policy, especially economic policy, does affect housing and does affect home ownership. And that's why in my previous episode, I talked about the first-time home buyer is now 40 and why I believe that's the case. And also the fact that there's a 50-year mortgage that might take into place because that's the reality that we're in. A lot of 20, 30-year-olds are upset, and I get it. I mean, I'm in your age bracket, and I see a lot of my clients and people younger than me or a little bit older than me upset. Makes total sense. And that's why today we're talking about our Congress people, because I think a lot of this it goes back to government. It always kind of goes back to government and what they vote on and things like that, and their constituents and the demographics and all that matters. So have you ever taken into account how long our Congress people have been holding their position in office? Some of them have been there longer than I've been alive. And even way older than me. They've been there forever. And I think that's the problem. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with people that are older, because that's not the case. But with time, you can get complacent, you can get more selfish, or you can get just tired, or unfortunately corruptible. And that's just the reality of regardless of what age you are. But the longer you're in a certain position or in a area, right, in DC, things tend to change, I believe. And that's kind of what we're seeing here. And I do think someone that is a lot older is a lot wiser, and in many cases should lead on a lot of things and are specialists. Someone that's been doing something for so long is obviously a specialist, but maybe consider doing something like electing someone that has been great at their profession in something, and then they want to run for office, and somehow they bring something to the table from their past experience. That's probably the right way to go. The other way is what I'm thinking and what is kind of happening now, fortunately, and we'll look into the data in just a moment, but that's young people are being elected, and that's fantastic. The one thing I'm a little bit concerned about with all this, though, is these young people are going down the path of socialism. And now I understand certain things make sense on that path of that ideology, and some of it is true. I could see it, especially for all the crap that we've gone through as the younger generation, because a lot of them don't own capital, don't have a property. So why do they have to care about the system that they're currently in, which I think hasn't been ran well in many years, decades upon decades, and it's not being run the right way. But enough of that stuff, because there's not enough time in this episode. Again, going back to the Congress people, these young people that are going into politics, I appreciate them because they say they're going to help millennials, Gen Z, and Alpha. And I agree with, I believe some of them are truthfully trying to do so. But when you go down the path of the socialist aspect, I think that's where we have a problem. And if only more people can just stick to common sense being, why don't we get elected, or why don't we aim for policy that has nothing to do or kind of strays away from a lot of what's been done in the last 30, 40, 50 years. Maybe not vote on those same things or cut back on things like outsourcing, maybe bring back jobs here, and also maybe just consider focusing on the American citizen, the people here, and not everywhere else, right? I think that would be ideal. And also cut back on spending and spend more on the people here, spend more on our infrastructure and get rid of all the administration stuff. And that's probably where the left and right would have to navigate to be able to streamline and do more common sense. Let's go into the data so I could share with you exactly what's going on with the age brackets in Congress. And it'll be a little bit mind-blowing for some of you. Some of you already know this, some of you don't. But again, let's just take a look. So here we have a graph reflecting percentage of Congress people over the age of 70 years old. And as you can see, this is just, swinging to the upside on age because in terms of the percentage of people in that age and older. It says here, data confirms the trend as of 2025, nearly 120 members, so about 22% of people in Congress are 70 years or older. Now, that is mind-boggling. This is the highest ever compared to 6% that are under 40 years old. So the young people, there's not enough of us in Congress that are holding a position. So it fuels debates on gerontocracy and its impact on youth-facing issues like housing affordability. So this is where the tug of war of what's going on in politics is happening. And I do think we need to bring in more younger people with some actual experience of what's been going on in this country when you're been faced with all these challenges that a lot of older people probably have not. So they don't understand the realities of what's going on. And when someone says the first time home buyer is 40 years old, if you're past that and you own a property, past that in age that is, and you own a property, that doesn't mean anything to you. That doesn't ring any bells, but it does when you're young, under that age bracket, and you see what's going on with those or you don't even own property, or maybe you own property, but everyone else doesn't. Because I see it day in and day out in my profession. A lot of my clients, and rightfully so, I appreciate them all, they're older, and that's just the reality. It's not their fault. Some of them, it's not their fault. It's really not their fault. But the way things are going, I mean, it's the fault of these Congress people, to be honest. They're not there to help the youth, is what I'm seeing, in my opinion. So I'm just going to read off some more data. Again, I don't really care to talk about this so much because I'm a realtor. I'm here to talk about real estate. I'm a podcaster. I don't even like using that term so much, but I do podcasting because I'm told this is what I should be doing as a real estate agent to get my name out there. So if you think this is going to help me in my profession, please drop a comment below. And maybe it might not, but what I can say it does do, what this does do to benefit me, and I'm being a little selfish here, but it actually benefits my clients as well, more so them than me. But this keeps me on track of what's going on. It makes me read the newspaper. It makes me watch YouTube videos. It makes me listen to socialist, capitalist, everything in between, so I can make my best decision on certain things and navigate through the waters of all these difficulties so I can give advice to my clientele. So in any case, I just went off on a rant. But let's take a look at some other things here. So let's take a look at this graph by Pew Research. So the title is Younger Generations Make Up Growing Share of Congress, especially in the House. So it's a bar graph for those of you that are just listening. Each generation as a percentage of the House of Representatives and Senate by Congress. So the bar graph on the left is the House, which I'll start with first. It's nice to see that in the House of Representatives, the 119th of Congress is what we're seeing, particularly on the right side of this side here, is about half. It looks like almost about half is kind of equally measured, which is nice to see, meaning there's some young people versus the older people in terms of demographics. It looks okay. So Gen Zs, there's only 0.2%. Obviously makes sense. Millennials, 15%. Gen X, 41%, so older, but at least they're not the boomers. And then 39% are boomers, and then 4% are the silent generation, obviously a lot older. So it looks pretty good on the 119th of Congress of 2025 to 2027. It doesn't look too bad. It's a lot better than in the 115th, which was in 2017, where 62% were boomers, 10% was silent generation, only 27% was millennial. So we're doing some progress here, people. Like I said, that's good. We're seeing elected a people, younger generations are there to help the younger people. At least I hope so, unless, DC swallows them up and, does what it does. Right. But hopefully they're not going down the rabbit hole of socialism, these younger people, which is kind of what we're seeing. And that's kind of why I'm making this video. Hopefully they don't do that. So in the Senate, what we're seeing is 119th of Congress, which again is 2025 to 2027. There's a complete different demographic here. It's a lot older than in the House. 61% are boomers. 6% are silent generation. 28% is millennials, 5% is Gen Z. So it's very lopsided. So at least we're doing something in the House of Representatives to all of us young 20, 30-year-olds and some 40-year-olds here too, I guess. We're doing something good here, at least. The 119th Congress is slightly younger than the last Congress, with more millennials and Gen Xers, kind of what I already said. The median age of voting members of the House of Representatives is 57.5 years, down from 57.9 at the start of the 118th Congress and 58.9 at the start of the 117th Congress. So again, things have improved. People are younger. The median age of the Senate, however, is 64.7 years, down from 65.3 at the start of the prior Congress. And the median age of the Senate had previously risen for the three Congresses in a row. So again, older for some reason. I mean, it obviously makes sense. When you're a senator, you have more experience. You have to have more qualifications. So therefore, the people are older. But again, are older. So if we see younger people in office, I think that will definitely help us younger people because, again, their focus will be to their constituents who elected them, usually someone younger. So that's always, some hope for the United States is what I'm seeing here. So it's not all doom and gloom, everyone. I'm not here to scare or bore you with how crappy our lives are because it's not. We still live in a great nation. But let's move on to why I think older people have kind of made it rough for us. And a lot of it is compensation is not where it should be. Companies are not paying us high enough money so that we can afford the lifestyle that our parents and our grandparents had. I mean, let's look at this graph alone. Buying a home in 1985, which was not too long ago, everyone, versus now. Baby boomers made a median household of $23,620. The median home price at that time was $83,200. That spread is not much. That's $60,000 difference. That's nothing. But, there's obviously some other reasons why housing was a lot less. But, so the comparison isn't exact. There's a lot of variables, moving parts that, can't make it an exact comparison. But, for simplicity purposes. And those of you listening on audio, I'm looking at a bar graph here. I unfortunately don't know where I got this from, but I think this was on, I don't know where the source was. I don't remember, but it was legitimate. Okay. It's not bullshit. It was good. I could always do an image search and maybe I could put where the exact source was. The millennial household income is $74,580 in the country, right? The average home price, or the median home price for that matter, $468,000. Look at that spread. Look at the spread of then to now. And it just tells you why everyone's so upset and things are not good. So from this article I had got this image from. The attached chart illustrates worsening affordability with 2025 median home prices at $468,000 versus $74,580, the median income for millennials. 6.3 times the income compared to 3.5 times for baby boomers in 1985. Not good, everyone. So boomers, when you're asking why are you guys so lazy or upset, there's the hardship that they're undertaking, and there's the hardship of what's going on. And those that are buying houses, a lot of them do get help from their parents. They give them the gift money, because I don't see how any other way would happen unless you're making a killing of money and you're the top of the top percent that can afford to do that. But if you're fortunate, you have a parent helping you. Or, as I said in the last episode, what you should do, what I've seen a lot of my clients do that are younger, and again, some financial advisors would say this isn't right or this isn't good to do, but use your 401k. Use a piece of it, not all of it, obviously. Use a chunk of it for the down payment. Again, you can put as little as 3% down all the way to 20% down. Use some of that or all of that for that down payment, and then make sure to pay yourself back. So it's a loan on yourself. That's one of the ways to do it. Or you take the 50-year mortgage. You saw what the pros and cons were that I said. So take all that into account with a grain of salt. Moving on to the next data point. Amy Nixon, who is big on X, I got this from her, but she utilized this graph from National Association of Realtors. Says the first time home buyers are older than ever. So that's the title. The median age of first time home buyers has reached a historic high as they are edged out of the market for repeat buyers or by repeat buyers. First time home buyers, especially younger ones, can compete. Obvious reasons. In 1991, the average first time home buyer was 28. In 2025, again, we already said this, but the first time home buyer was 40 years old, or is 40 years old. So 40 years old now versus 1991, it was 28 years old. What a big difference. I mean, that changes people's perception of how they look at the country, capitalism, how they look at their worldview, their culture, everything. Repeat buyers in 1991 were 42 years old. Now they're 62. And there's something interesting when you're kind of do a little bit of critical thinking of the comparisons in that. And also in 1991, a 28-year-old is how old now? Starting to kind of look interesting here. So Amy Nixon points out, I took this from her tweet that she actually tweeted. It says, the people who bought their homes in 1991 are literally exactly the same ones buying all the homes today. And she's not wrong. So Amy Nixon, I retweeted this. Very good. I agree. And it's kind of not funny, but not. And then I found this either from her tweet or from somewhere she sourced, but I thought it was interesting to kind of go over too, because it is true. The risk to a homeowner on a mortgage is the initial 1/4 of the amortization period. So that's paying off your principal. It's where they aren't paying down the principal much and a relatively minor decline in value or a forced sale situation can leave them upside down. However, the way things are going right now and have been going, home prices going up, there's probably not going to be so much of an upside down situation if you're in the right areas and equity keeps being built because the values keep going up. This is yet another demand side answer to a supply side problem, while ultimately forcing new market participants to spend far more of the same home for the same home. I believe Amy Nixon might have tweeted this too, or she got this source from somewhere because I saw it on her X. So I don't know who to give credit to, but I'm going to read it because it's interesting. The risk to a homeowner on a mortgage is the initial 1/4 of the amortization period. It's where they aren't paying down the principal much and a relatively minor decline in value or a forced sale situation can leave them upside down. End quote. At least part of it. I just want to say on that note, if you buy in the right spot, you're not really going to be in an upside down situation. Given what the data trend has been showing, home prices have continued to gone up. Yes, there's been some troughs, there's been some declines, but if you buy in the right spot, you should be fine. And that's kind of what we're seeing. We've only seen home prices fall single digit percentage and not even on the high side. So in any case, I'm going to keep quoting what I'm quoting here. This is yet another demand side answer to a supply side problem, while ultimately forcing new market participants to spend far more for the same home. Okay. And then she goes on, or whoever the source is, it's a hack attempt to solve a problem from the wrong angle and will be another intergenerational wealth transfer to largely older owners who can plow proceeds into equities at the cost of added years of labor for those who are younger. So obviously, we're seeing the older people benefiting of home ownership while the young people can't because they can't even afford it. And it's obviously a demand side situation going on. And the supply side is where it needs to go. And I'm going on a little rant here, and I'm not quoting again at this point for those of you watching or listening. The problem, though, is when you're on the supply side, we do need to be on the supply side is my point, but we do need more housing in many ways. The only thing is a lot of people don't want the density of their given area to get worse. And I don't know where to go about that. There's a lot of gray area there. But in any case, and it goes on. But of course, resolving supply issues might risk existing homeowners not making as much money on what is ostensibly their home and not a government-backed investment vehicle. So we'll probably do this instead. The older generation doesn't want more supply because obviously more supply hits the market. It's going to have that effect where demand goes down. for the homes that are the smaller amount of homes that are for sale. More supply means more options, less money all across the line. But that's kind of what needs to happen. And going back to what I had said was, yeah, in certain areas, it sucks to see the density go up. It might be needed, but what needs to take place is other neighborhoods or other areas need to bring up more housing where the density isn't so bad, I believe. And that's how you get the ability to make it kind of practical for almost everyone. So there's like a whole tug and pull. There's so much going on where no one wants to give in on their side because obviously we're all for our own self-interest, but you need to prioritize your youth, the children, but also the young adults. They need to thrive in order for this country to remain great, for this country to do well, and for everything to be safer altogether. We can't just prioritize a certain demographic of people. Although they deserve what they have. I'm sure many of them have worked hard. But when it's an uphill battle for young people to get what they want, there's going to lie a problem where culturally things are going to change drastically in the negative way and also economically, because who's going to pay the retirement for all these older people getting retired? There's not enough people. I mean, maybe that's the reason why there's a flood of more people coming into this country. But if they're all more so on the lower paying job or those that are H-1B visas that have the money to do so, that's still not enough people to pay the retirement bills. I mean, I don't know what's going to go down with that. That's a major problem. But I think we need to go back to prioritizing young adults and those that are children that will be young adults. And if we do that, that's the kind of will resolve a lot of problems and a lot of bipartisanness and all this crap and people always getting into arguments. So elect younger people, elect people with some common sense that don't go so left, so right. Maybe just don't do the same things these politicians have been doing the last 30 to 40, 50 years. Again, prioritize at home, prioritize the money at home more so, cut back spending, and do things along those lines. Right. So there it is. We need to prioritize the young adults, the children that will eventually be young adults. Prioritize that demographic a little bit more and not so much on that other side. It's obviously important that they grow older, relax, and have the time of their life. Totally agree. They worked hard, as they should. But who's going to be paying the pool of people that are going to be paying for all those people in retirement? That pool of people is dwindling down and they need help. When they're constantly facing an uphill battle, it's obviously going to change things in the nation culturally, economically, and overall, it's not good. The future is the younger people, and that's just the case. So find a way to help them. And one of the ways we can do that is by electing people that are younger, but have common sense and don't stray too off left or right. But common sense is not very common, but, don't do what a lot of these politicians have been doing, pushing policy in the last 30 to 50 years. Focus more at home. Focus more investing at home. Cut back spending in other areas that's not as important. Focus on those people at home and prioritize them, and that'll be the way to go. And I hope you found this valuable. Again, I do this as a real estate agent and a podcaster in the real estate industry because it helps me learn. It helps me hear different ideologies that I normally wouldn't be privy to or wouldn't want to be around so much, but it makes me better at understanding things, thinking critically, and more so helping the audience here or giving you some different perspective on things. So in any case, comment, like, subscribe, whatever it is, share this with someone you know. And those listening in audio, I appreciate you, but take a look at our YouTube channel too at Full Count Podcast. And that's it for tonight.